All right, Pat Welter joined by Corey Frazier making his WRAL sports debut. Corey is a intern with us from NC Central this season. He's been helping me out behind the scenes, writing some stuff for the web this season. So we're going to do a little podcast breaking down Duke's 34-17 loss to Virginia. And Corey, the story for me all season with Duke really has been they kind of beat themselves in a lot of their biggest games and their toughest opponents. You go back to Illinois, Tulane, Georgia Tech, and then even most recently, the kind of inexplicable loss at UConn last week. But in this game versus Virginia, there was no denying who the better team was. It was Virginia all afternoon. They largely dominated this game and left Duke looking for answers.
Yeah, they absolutely really ambushed that Duke defense, especially the running game from Virginia. Got a import from NC Central, Jamari Taylor.
Shout out.
Got to see him pretty much all last year just do what he's doing now at the highest level of collegiate football. But yeah, like Duke just didn't have an answer for the run game, both from the running back and the quarterback.
12 of 19 on third down, one of the key stats of the game for Virginia. And that's something that Chandler Morris and Virginia have been doing all season. We saw them do it to NC State, albeit in a loss earlier this year. And Carolina and their impressive defense really gave Virginia one of their toughest games of the year, but that was not the case in this one. And Manny Diaz afterwards just kind of giving a tip of the cap, like they were the better team. They beat us. I think it's even interesting to think about, like you talk about Duke beating themselves. They were actually able to generate 2 turnovers. They had an interception by Chandler Rivers, which is in the first half. They weren't able to capitalize on it. In the second half, they get the Trey Freeman pick 6. But at that point, the game is out of reach. It was 31-10. At that point, it just makes it, it gives them up to 17 to kind of make the final score respectable. Anything else that stood out to you from this one?
Honestly, just the pressure on Darian Mitza. Mitza was a semifinalist, I believe, for the Davy O'Brien Award, but he did not look like that whatsoever here in this game. That Virginia defense just made life very, very difficult for Mitza. He didn't really seem comfortable in the pocket at all. He was holding on to the ball a lot, and that forced a lot of sacks and just a lot of turnovers. There were a lot of 4 and outs for Duke.
This felt like a Saturday where some degree of order was restored to the ACC, because this was a game where Duke, despite having 4 losses coming into it, controlled their own destiny to get to Charlotte and play in the ACC title game if they had beaten Virginia in this one. And now essentially they're all but eliminated. I mean, I think statistically there might be a small chance they can make it in there, but I don't think it's happening. And I think we saw that they aren't good enough to be that kind of team regardless, because that would have been a funny scenario, though, just to talk about. Like, Duke goes to the ACC title game, happens to win it, and then potentially gets left out of the college football playoff because they aren't among the highest ranked power conferences. So that would have been a funny scenario, a scenario we no longer have to deal with because Virginia won this game. Virginia has probably been the most consistent team in the ACC this season, if not Georgia Tech. And the other one would be Miami, who blew the doors off of NC State today.
Yeah.
Now, I know neither of us were really able to watch that game because we were here covering Duke, but just seeing the final score, which I believe was 41-7, NC State couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. CJ Bailey, 2 interceptions. So after seeing them play a perfect offensive game in that incredible win at home over Georgia Tech 2 weeks ago, the complete opposite in this one. Anything you want to add about NC State and the state of the Wolfpack right now?
The Wolfpack definitely on the hot seat. The only person who isn't on the hot seat is Coach Diaz of the Duke Blue Devils. If you are in North Carolina and you have a college football team and your last name is not Diaz, you have a lot of trouble coming your way. Belichick definitely facing high stakes. As this is being recorded, Wake Forest is very up on North Carolina. And obviously, Coach Doran just hasn't really had the best season. So, yeah, 2 coaches with a lot to lose, and their backs against the wall in these next coming week.
Yeah, I guess we got to throw Jake Dickert into the job is safe category over there at Wake Forest, doing an incredible job in his first season. And that's an interesting test case when you compare Bill Belichick and UNC going into Wake Forest, where Belichick has had reasons for why it was such a slow start. pointing to late start in the transfer portal, bringing guys in after the spring, not being able to necessarily play to guys' strengths earlier in the year and finding those strengths as we went on. Meanwhile, Wake Forest, coach making half as much money, roster probably half as expensive, and they handle the Tar Heels pretty easily. UNC doesn't even score a touchdown in the game. And that's the problem for UNC, right? Like, the defense has been great. We've seen this since, I guess, really the Cal game, right? Like Cal, Virginia, Syracuse, and these back-to-back wins, Syracuse, Stanford, where you're looking at the level of competition and you go to Wake Forest, you're like, well, this is going to tell us how good this team really is, how much improvement they've really had. And when your offense can't even score a touchdown, the defense can only take you so far.
Yeah, it's just Carolina just had a lot of expectations coming in. We're called the 33rd NFL team. That was just too much expectations to put on a college team that just didn't really have that much talent coming into the season, lost a lot of talent from last year, lost a lot of guys to the NFL draft and stuff like that. So just coming into this season, just had way too many expectations on them, and we've just seen it collapse, honestly.
And what's fun now is because this season's largely should be over, short of trying to gain bowl eligibility. But when you stack some of the rivals at the end of the year, it gives you something to watch, gives you something to play for. And we've got battle for the victory bell between Duke and Carolina in Chapel Hill. This is Manny Diaz talking about playing for bowl eligibility, playing for that victory bell. He called it the perfect game for his Blue Devils to regroup, who went from that high of beating Clemson in that incredible shootout down there to now losing back-to-back games. He expects it to be much better focused, but they're going to have another tough battle in that UNC defense. Mensa struggled against Virginia. We'll see what that Bill Belichick defense can cook up. So on paper, I like Duke to beat UNC just because of the fact that UNC can't score, but that UNC defense has proven they can take them a long way. And then for NC State, they've got Florida State coming up, and they've got UNC coming up. And as much as that Georgia Tech win kind of put the ledger in maybe Dave Doran's favor for wanting to come back, if he wants to come back, and for the administration and welcoming him back, if he can't beat Carolina to come to the end of the year, I would imagine his job is as good as gone.
Yeah, Doran definitely is facing a lot. You just mentioned those teams. Florida State, not a team to joke with whatsoever. That's just the thing, Pat, about like the end of the season. It's really anybody's game. A lot of people aren't really even playing for bowl eligibility. They're just playing for their jobs at that point, which I would argue like that makes a team more dangerous, especially at the end of the year when they don't really have anything to lose but their job.
I mean, look at South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Former Duke head coach Mike Elko, my number one team for the last several weeks in my AP poll, and I'm getting some texts today from people, Texas A&M is losing, I don't know what the score was at the time, like 30-10 or something, and then they go on a rally.
30-0.
Was it 30-0? They go on a rally. They win that game 31-30. So shout out to Mike Elko, former Blue Devil, getting it done, has his Texas A&M team well positioned to not only make the college football playoff, but potentially win the national title. And Corey, we are looking at Cameron Indoor Stadium across from us. Wallace Wade here behind us. We're about to put the football season in the rearview mirror and having probably much more positive things to say about our local basketball teams, but still some interesting conversations to be had and some key decisions to make for these athletic departments going forward. For Corey Frazier, I'm Pat Welter, signing off here for Triangle 2 in Durham.